All right, we're live. Can you boys hear me? Hold up. Let me get this fucking chat box open so I can read all your messages. And if you have questions, you can post them up in there too. We'll wait like 2 or 3 minutes for everybody to join on, to log on, and then I'll like pump straight into this fucking content. I'm so psyched for this shit. Hold up. Let me see what the fuck it's at. There we go. All right. Hold up. Cool. So we have about 30 people logged on right now. I mean, it's 1:33. At 1:35, we'll actually jump into the contents. So just give it 2 more minutes. Wait for a couple more guys to join on. All right, fuck it. Let's get started. I can't wait any longer. Fuck those guys who are late. So a quick little intro. The reason I wanted to do this webinar on isolation and pulling is because I've seen this recent trend in the community where it's heading in this like really woo-woo type of direction where, you know, with Julian's new product, like Transformation Mastery, everybody's like, yeah, you just got to be like free from outcome and the girl will suck your dick. Well, it's actually not really like that. That's not how it works. And there's been like a huge neglect for the fundamental processes you need to apply once you're there like face to face in front of the girl in order to actually make this shit happen. So, you know, a lot of the focus has been on like, you know, overcoming insecurities, overcoming childhood traumas, all that type of shit, you know, meditating, reading, and it's as if you just like stand there and the girl, you'd be like, oh my God, he reads so much. Let me like get on my knees and suck his dick. Right? It's not actually like that, and it's not how it works. So my goal really with this webinar here today is to provide you guys with like the most fundamental processes that I see absolutely fucking nobody applying that are actually going to get you the results that you want. Don't get me wrong, I love the self-development stuff. I'm really into it, and I'm going to put out a lot more content regarding that, but that's long-term game. What I'm thinking here is like, what tools can I give you guys so that when you go out tonight, when you go out tomorrow night, when you go out next, you're able to implement immediately, like face to face when you're talking with the girl, to actually like isolate her and pull her home. Okay. And I want to call out like the Sydney community specifically in regards to this. And the type of shit that I see a lot there is well below par and really not on the level that it should be. So especially when it comes to isolation, let's kind of like delve into the definition of isolation and why it's so important before I actually like teach you guys how to do it and all the mechanics. Isolation is basically the art of getting a girl away from her friends and into private with you, away from her friends, away from people in general, into a private place where you two can really amp up that connection between you. Now, the reason it's so important is because it's very hard to sequentially and logically build up the interaction towards sex if you've got all her friends there judging her. So especially with the Sydney guys, what I typically see is when I'm out, I see some guy approaching a girl, opening a girl, and I'm like, cool, that's good. I walk around, I do my own shit. I come back 40 minutes later, the guy is in the exact same fucking place with the same girl, with the same group of friends, which is a pretty reasonable amount of FaceTime to get in the club with a girl. Like 40 minutes is good, but He's in the same fucking place, and he thinks that just by virtue of being in proximity with the girl, he's going to get her, and that he's moving the interaction towards sex, where really he's just entertaining the friends in a bunch of like nonsense, purposeless conversation, and it's not really leading him anywhere. So yeah, isolation is basically the idea that you want to get the girl away from the friends, away from all judgment, and put yourself in a situation where you can really logically and sequentially progress the interaction towards sex in a way where you can actually control it. So just as a side note, for those of you who don't aren't that familiar with my content, there's basically two primary ideas that I teach when it comes to what you need to do in order to get a girl to sleep with you off of cold approach, in order to get a random girl that you just met in the nightclub to come home with you. Number one is learning how to spike her emotions, how to amp her buying temperature. And number two is how to build compliance, how to elicit investment so you can then ask for compliance, because investment is proportional to compliance. So the more investment you're able to elicit, the more compliance you're able to later ask for when you go for the pool later on in the night. So you always want to be beginning with the end goal in mind. And the end goal is to get a one-on-one back to your place at the end of the night. And most guys don't really have a game plan, like I said, and they think that just by virtue of being in proximity with the girl, somehow by the end of the night, the girl's just going to like suck them off. And it's not really like that. You get lost entertaining the group of friends and you're barely making any sort of headway with a girl. But once you actually got her in isolation, you can bust into the sex talk. You can get her in chasing frames, and you can do all these things to their full effect without having to worry about like what the friends think of her and about the friends judging her and all of that type of shit. Like it's essentially impossible. I mean, there are exceptions to this, but it's essentially impossible to build the required amount of sexual tension with a girl and elicit the required amount of investment from her unless you're in isolation. It's almost impossible to do that with the entire fucking group of friends there. So let me give you guys a clear-cut example of what I'm really talking about here. So say you want to do like a little takeaway on a girl, right? You want to like, oh, wow, you don't like Drake. Okay, bye. You kind of like turn around and fake walking away just to get her chasing a little bit, just to get her investing in the interaction a little bit more. If you do that in isolation and it's just you two, what typically tends to happen is that she'll start chasing and she'll start qualifying. She'll be like, oh no, actually, come back. Drake is pretty cool, yada, yada, yada. Right? And that's a pretty big leap of emotional investment on her end. And now you're actually making some fucking headway with the girl. Now, if you try to do that exact same thing in front of her whole group of friends, what do you think is going to happen? Right? What typically will happen is that she's not going to put herself on the line for you like that in front of them because she risks getting judged. So she's going to be like, okay, cool, right? You're going to make a fucking clown out of yourself and all your value just drops and you're basically done. It's very, very difficult to recover from something like that. Number two, just the act and the process of moving her around, bouncing her, isolating in itself is beginning to build compliance momentum, right? You're getting her in the habit of following you around. What do you think will happen if you're just in the same place with the girl for the entire night and then at the end of the night you're like, oh yeah, after party, let's go? It's going to be like, what the fuck? Are you serious? Like, no, thank you. Right? You're asking for too much compliance at once. It's too much of a fucking step, right? So you need to get her in the habit of following you around, and just that first step of isolating her is a good way to initiate that and to get the ball rolling with that sort of thing, right? So you're getting small yes after small yes after small yes after small yes, and then you can ask for the big yes at the end of the night. You can't just jump to the big yes. And the third benefit of isolating her, which I think is really, really fucking key, and this is going to be important for those guys who tend to have a little bit of trouble getting the girl to open up to them, who, feel like they have to do all the work and the girl's not really picking up her end of the conversation. Subconsciously, what isolating does is it shifts the dynamic of the interaction in her mind, right? So when you initially approach her, the whole dynamic is like, all right, this is just a random guy who's approaching me. I don't know him, and there's no reason I should open up to him or do whatever, right? He's just part of the whole hordes of other random fucking guys that approach me. He's just like one of them, right? Now, once you fucking isolate her, once you bounce her around into a different environment, what that's going to do is shift the dynamic in her mind to, oh, I'm with this guy now. He's part of the group. he's in on the fucking team, right? And that way she's going to be a lot more receptive to you. She's going to open up a lot more, and it's going to make the entire fucking interaction a hell of a lot easier. So if you are one of those guys who's having a little bit of trouble getting the girl to open up, then just begin fucking isolating, and you'll see the massive difference it makes in the vibe of the interaction. So overall, like the benefits of having isolated a girl is that you're now taking proactive measures to move the interaction towards sex, right? You're not being passive and letting the interaction impose itself onto you. Because what typically happens when you just, you stay there and like you befriend the friends and you keep chatting in the entire group is that eventually the group will want to move somewhere else, right? They're like, oh, we're going to go dancing. Nice to meet you. Bye. Or we're going to go get a drink. It was lovely to meet you. We'll see you later. And even if the set is going well, even if you're really hitting it off with your girl, she's typically just going to tend to follow them, right? Because you haven't, and like, even though the set was going well, it blows out, right? You're fucking done. You lost the set. The very best case scenario is, they might invite you to come along, but even then that's not ideal because it's going to create a lot of problems down the line for you. When you try to pull later on, right? Because you don't have her in the habit of following you around. You're the one who's following her. It's going to be very hard to ask for that big step of compliance at the end. Yeah, so that's kind of like the general idea. And that's why I think it's super fucking important to isolate. And when I get super fucking pissed off when I see all of you fucking guys out in the Sydney community not really doing it, right? It's like the kind of mental headspace you're coming from is like, I hope she likes me enough to like take control of the interaction and move things forward along for me and look like a fucking slut in front of her friends. It's like, fucking none of this shit. Just grab the interaction by the balls and learn how to make it happen. Now, people hear about this. They're like, oh yeah, cool, isolating. I'll try that. I'll try that with a couple of girls tonight. No, literally try that with every single fucking girl that you open, right? Unless you're isolating, you should be isolating like 90% of the girls that you open, right? If you're opening 15 girls a night, you should be isolating like 13 of them, right? I'm not fucking exaggerating here. Otherwise, you're just essentially throwing in the towel, right? The interaction hits a ceiling, which you can't progress through unless you isolate, right? And when you don't take that action, when you don't take that decisive step, when you don't man the fuck up, grab her by the hand and lead her somewhere else, you're throwing in the towel, and it's like you're giving up before you've even fucking started with this shit, right? Your interactions will fall flat, they'll run dry and lead nowhere. Seriously, if you just begin isolating every girl that you open, you'll be fucking shocked at how much your results improve. I've had students who have had a lot of trouble in the first night of boot camp, struggling to build sexual tension with a girl. And then after I taught them how to isolate, they were just like casually fingering girls in the nightclub, right? It's crazy. So that's why that's what isolation is, and that's why it's important to make it happen. Now, let's jump into the actual mechanics, into the bread and butter. Like, how do you isolate? When do you isolate? Right? So say you approach a girl, when the fuck do you do it? How the fuck do you do it? I'd like to pretense this section by saying that there are generally two paradigms of game. Right? You got like game 1.0, which is where most guys are currently stuck at. And then you have game 2.0. But game 1.0 is like when you try to isolate her from her friends, like I described. It's like, how do I get her away from the friends into isolation, into a private place? Game 2.0 is a fucking paradigm above that, where you're not even the one who's required to isolate, right? Your game becomes so sharp, and you reach a stage where you can create such strong and obvious connections with girls, and to the point where the friends can see how fucking infatuated the girl is with you, that they'll just like vanish. They'll leave you two alone. They'll leave you to it. You don't need to, actually grab her by the hand and leave and lead her somewhere. The friends will just fuck off and leave you guys to that. And I've had a lot of guys actually make a comment about this, who've seen me like live in action, and they're like, dude, you're so lucky. Like every time you speak to a girl, her friends just leave you guys to it. I get cockblocked so often. Like, it's not fucking luck, dude. I'm consciously executing to make this shit happen. But with this stuff is a little bit more advanced, and I can't like pack it all into like a 1-hour webinar. So what I'm going to do is provide you guys with the tactics to perfect like stage 1 of game, right? Game 1.0. And the most important thing to keep in mind when you're looking to isolate a girl is the place that you're fucking coming from, right? Assertiveness versus permission seeking, right? The reason most guys fail when they try to isolate is that they're just too fucking permission seeking. Do not go up and seek permission. Do not be the guy who's like, hey, do you want to come to the bar? Hey, do you want to go check the outside area? If you do that shit, she's reflexively and instinctively going to be like, no, thank you, right? What you're subconsciously communicating is that you're like, if you're being like a meek little bitch like that, and you're being permission seeking, what that's going to communicate to her is that you're also going to be a meek little bitch when it comes to the bedroom. You'll be like, oh, may I take your shirt off now? May I lick your titty? Right? It's not, she's going to be repulsed by that type of fucking energy, right? So female psychology 101, girls don't want to look like sluts, right? None of this permission seeking shit. Take the responsibility off of her shoulders and just lead, right? So it's not be assertive, lead, don't fucking hesitate. That way, it just happened. He just did it. I had nothing to do with it, right? All the responsibility is on you. She doesn't have to accept any of the responsibility. And it's going to make your isolation attempts a lot more successful. So keep that in mind. No fucking permission seeking. Be assertive, slick, smooth movements. Grab her by the hand and just physically lead. So when it comes to the practical elements so that's kind of like the mindset you want to be coming from. And when it comes to the practical elements of isolation, there are two here, right? There's the physical leading itself. So in terms of the physical leading, you literally just want to grab a hand. And when you do, you don't want to grab it like this, right? That's some fucking friend to friend shit. That's what she does with like her gay best friend. Instead, you want to interlock fucking fingers with her and just lead her away. Don't look back. Interlock fingers, lead her away. Now, the second aspect is the verbals. It's like, yeah, you do that, but how do you keep her logical mind satisfied, right? So typically you're going to have to provide her with some sort of excuse to satisfy the logical brain. And it doesn't even really have to make sense. It can be as simple and as stupid as like, oh, we're in people's way. Let's move a couple of meters over here. Boom, grab her by the hand, move her a couple of meters. Ideally, you should know the club environment that you're in. You should know the ins and outs. You should know where you should have a game plan of where you want to take her. My personal favorite is taking her to the bar. The reason being is that I can then I usually take it to the bar with the excuse of, getting water. I grab her and I'm like, hey, I'm thirsty. Let's go to the bar, grab a drink of water. I know for you fuckers in Europe, it costs money to get fucking water in the club. Here in Australia, it's free. So yeah, I do that. And the reason I like to take it to the bar is that I can then lock myself in. And this is an old school principle, again, that nobody seems to fucking apply or even consider, but it's so powerful. What this means is that I can make myself physically comfortable and like just lean back against the bar, like physically comfortable to engage in a long interaction with this girl now. And the two biggest benefits to this is that now you're like face to face, one-on-one, in close proximity with the girl. So all fucking attention is like exclusively on you. And number two here as well, it's massive fucking social proof to the entire club and to everybody else, like viewing the interaction from an outside perspective. Because from an outside perspective, it just looks like you're leaning back against the bar, being chill, being cool, and this girl approached you and she's like making an effort to engage you. So it's massive social proof, and that's why I like to do that. So that's the how of isolation. In terms of the when, like when do you want to isolate? You approach a girl, you know how to isolate, you grab her by the hand, you give her the excuse, you just bounce her. Like, when do you want to do it? My contention is the earlier, the better. Literally fucking ASAP. What I would say is that it usually takes me between 2 to 3 minutes to isolate. The two main criteria you want to be looking for before you actually isolate her is, number one, is she hooked, right? Has she asked you any questions, or is she investing in the conversation in any reasonable way? And number two, is the interaction at a high emotional point, right? Those are the two criteria. And in real time, you can actually achieve these two criteria in like literally 20 to 30 seconds, right? So say, for example, I'll give you like a real life example of some of the stuff that I do. I might, girls like in a fucking group of people, like in a circle, I'll just walk straight up to her, tap her on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, are you from Sydney? She'll be like, yeah. Like, that's a little bit disappointing. I was hoping for something a little bit more exotic. And she'd be like immediately throw that little spike in there. She'd be like, haha, you're such an asshole. Actually, I got like a little bit of Italian in me, blah, 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 blah. Oh, what's your background? Right? And now within like 20 seconds, I've already hit those two criteria, right? Number one, she just asked me a question. She's hooked. She's investing in the interaction somewhat. And number two, I, reached a point of high emotional state with that like little negative spike immediately. So instead of like staying there and chatting to her, I'm like, oh, I'm from such and such and such and such. I grab a hand. I'm like, hey, I'll tell you in a bit, but I'm thirsty. Let's go grab some water real quick. Grab a hand, lead her, boom. Isolation achieved within like 20 to 30 fucking seconds, right? And I see you fuckers in there in the same fucking spot where you opened it like 30, 40 minutes later. Now, I'm not saying you should necessarily isolate within 20 to 30 seconds every fucking time. I'm just making a point as to the fact that you can achieve it a lot quicker than what you think. Yeah. So the kind of like problem is that when most guys try to isolate, they do it at the completely wrong time. So they don't take these criteria into consideration. Rather, they go in there and the energy of the interaction is on a high for the first like 10 to 15 minutes, right? That goes into them somewhat. And they're having fun vibing with her, but they don't capitalize on that like high emotional state of the interaction by moving her somewhere, right? They let it stay there. They let the energy die down, and they're not really sure how to control or manipulate the energy. So after like 10, 15 minutes, the spark kind of like leaves the interaction. The girl seems to lose interest a little bit. And that's when they fucking try to isolate as like a last resort. Like, oh, let's go the other room now. Boom, they try to grab her. It's like at a point of an emotional low. And that's when, it's just not going to work. You got to hit her on an emotional high, and, ideally after she's hooked as well. So that's really all there is to it. I mean, it's a very simple skill, but it's a very fucking fundamental one. And really, if you're not getting the results you want, ask yourself, out of the last 20 girls that I opened last night, how many of those girls did I isolate? If it's less than 15, then no wonder it's taking you like 6 nights a week of going out for 3 weeks before you fuck a girl, before you close a girl, all right? Because you're not following the processes required and beginning with the end in mind, okay? So that's really key there. We're getting a couple of questions in the fucking box. I'll leave those for the end. I'll leave the Q&A till the end because this content is really, really dense. I have a lot more stuff now on like a little bit of dance floor game and how to structure the actual pool that I want to jump into here. So we'll leave the questions till the end. And if you have any sort of, if you have anything you want clarified, if you want anything you want answered, just wait till the end and I'll make sure to get that down for you. Yeah, so that's the gist with isolation. It's important because you can now move the interaction very logically, very sequentially towards sex. You don't have to deal with the friends, all that bullshit, and it's great. In terms of like how to isolate a girl that you opened on the dance floor, that's a question many guys seem to have now. Dance floor game is my least favorite fucking topic in all of pickup. But I'll answer this one anyway. We'll try to cover it quickly. So I'll start with an anecdote here. Last week, I had a student that I made approach a group of girls on the dance floor, right? And I'm like, all right, dude, go approach that girl. All right, the hottest girl in the group, she's dancing around like a fucking maniac, having a lot of fun, high buying temperature, obviously. And he's like, all right, I got this shit. He starts walking up. He takes like 2 steps. Then he like freezes it up. He's like, turns around, walks back to me. I'm like, dude, what the fuck happened? He's like, I don't know how to approach on the dance floor. Like, how do I get a girl who's on the dance floor? So what I said to him was, okay, you approach the way you think you should approach, and then I'll demonstrate to you the way it's actually supposed to be done. Right? So he goes up there, and what he does is he starts like dancing up next to the girls and then trying to dance with them. And, you know, they engage him for a little bit and then they kind of blow him off. The thing with the dance floor game is that if you go up and then you try just like, if you go up and you try to open and you try to isolate by dancing with them, it's achieving absolutely fucking nothing. Right? At least in the beginning of the interaction. If you want to dance with a girl later on after she's into you and hooked and invested, that's fine. But in the beginning of the interaction, it's not really fucking achieving anything. You're not pumping your emotions, and nor are you eliciting investment, nor are you creating a foundation for that to happen later on, right? All you're just doing is like fucking dancing next to her, right? It might make sense to someone who doesn't understand these dynamics and these like social constructs, but to somebody who understands the game, you should understand that like opening a girl on the dance floor by trying to dance with her will literally achieve fucking nothing, right? So how do you actually do it? Literally the same way you do with a girl who's not on the fucking dance floor, right? You open, you hook, and you isolate. Same simple process with a couple of minor tweaks that I'm going to get into here. Number one, what this process means is that you open fucking verbally. You do not try to like dance up with her, okay? Now you're probably thinking, but you know, the music, the dancing, the high stimulus, how do I cut through all that noise and how do I get her fucking attention on me? The big kind of misconception that people seem to have is that they think you need to be high energy for this to work. Like you need to be jumping around, like wow, yada yada, and doing a lot of things, right? Now, that's not true. That high energy is not what's gonna cut through that noise. Rather, what's gonna cut through that noise is high intensity. Okay. If you guys don't know the difference between energy and intensity, energy is like, oh, you bring the party, right? You talking quickly, you jumping around. High energy is basically characterized by a lot of doing, right? It's you doing a lot of things, you jumping from place to place, you talking a lot. That's like high energy. High intensity, on the other hand, or intensity is basically just the amount of pressure that you're applying onto the person that you speak to. Now, the way you apply pressure onto somebody that you speak to is through your subverbals. That means your proximity, your eye contact, your dominant tonality, and your physicality, right? So when you approach a girl on the dance floor, you can still be relatively low energy. You don't have to do that much, but you have to be much high intensity to cut through all that noise. So that means you need to get fucking up closer to her. You need to speak louder. You need to lock eyes, and you need to, you know, engage in a little bit of touch there as well. So when I approach a girl on the dance floor, I make sure to square the fuck up to her so that I'm close enough that she can actually hear what the fuck I'm saying, and she can feel my presence being exerted, right? As opposed to just like dancing around next to her. Because what tends to happen is that you can't fake energy. If you try to put on this act of being high energy to like try to get the girl's attention on the dance floor, is that she'll sense that incongruence straight away and blow you the fuck out. Like what happened with my student the other week. So it literally, all it means is that you need to apply a little bit more fucking intensity to get her attention. Now, obviously, because there's so much stimulus, there's so much going on, there's so much craziness and shit, you can't maintain her attention for an extended period of time on the dance floor. So the real skill here comes in how quickly can you hook her? How good is your verbal game and your sub-communications that you can hook her quickly and then just bounce her immediately, right? And that's where the real skill comes in. And that's stuff that I discussed in other videos and in other modules. So I'm not really going to get into the specifics of hooking here, but just realize dance floor game, don't focus on energy, focus on intensity. There's a huge difference between the two. Hook quickly, bounce her out. That's really all there fucking is to it. It's not some like special, you don't need to learn how to salsa or how to be an amazing dancer or any of that shit really. All right, let's move on to the next bit, pulling, right? Who's having a little bit of difficulty pulling? So just like with isolation, where I mentioned there's like game 1.0 and there's game 2.0, and they operate on entirely different paradigms. the manifestation of this when it comes to pooling is that with game 1.0, what you're going to need to be doing is framing the pool in a specific way and like cultivating this contrived game plan, and then like handling all these objections, etc., etc. Whereas with game 2.0, it's essentially building investment to such a high degree that the girl is at the end of the night basically asking you to take her home. And again, I've got videos online of me doing this, but and this shit like happens to me on fucking boot camps as well all the time. I'll be winging a student and the girl would be like to me, oh, can we like go somewhere private now? I'm like, nah, I'm on boot camp at the moment, can't do it, sorry. Now it's again, like I mentioned earlier, it's too much for me to get into the game 2.0. So I'm going to teach you how to structure a traditional pool, and you're still going to get amazing results off that. Now, keep in mind that all the content that I'm about to run through with you guys here, I set it up in accordance with the concept of beginning with the end in mind, right? So my goal is always to develop a 100% self-reliant type of game where I never really have to rely on any wingman or any luck, or I never find myself in an unreasonable situation where I bring like 3 girls back with me and I have no wing, and it kind of gets difficult to close, unless of course I'm trying to like pull a threesome or something like that. But if I'm just trying to get like a girl one-on-one, but like the content that I'm going to explain to you here and going to run through with you guys here is basically designed to get just you and the girl one-on-one back to your place, right? Nothing else, no distractions. So you have the highest percentage chance of closing. The biggest problem when it comes to pooling is that guys don't really have any sort of sense when is an appropriate time to pool. And you know, I've coached guys, I've seen this a lot, and there are some guys who get in like a 25-minute, who finally manage to get into like a 25-minute interaction, and the first thing that comes to their mind is like, right, pool. It's like 12:30. The girl has literally only got in the venue like 30 minutes ago. She just like spent 2 fucking hours doing her hair and makeup and another hour pre-drinking, and the student is trying to like pull her for food after 25 minutes. Right? Do you think she's going to come for that? It's like, fuck no, right? It's completely inappropriate. And like, why the fuck would she? And then the student would keep trying again and again. Like after like 5 minutes, he'd be like, oh, food again. 5 minutes later, oh, food again. They're going to be like, no, right? And he just kept persisting. And this is what I find with a lot of guys, and they just don't have an accurate judgment of when is an appropriate time to actually go for it and when is an appropriate time to actually pull the fucking trigger. Now, I can't pretend that I wasn't at that stage myself at some point, because I was. And I've had tons of fucking experiences like this, where I remember one specific one that still like burns in my fucking memory. Back in the day, maybe 5-6 months into game, I finally managed to hook my first like bona fide fucking hottie, like gorgeous, tall, blonde girl, like really well done up, dress, high heels, lots of nice makeup. I like almost make out with her immediately, straight off the open. And I got like all my other like pickup crew of like newbies watching me, and they're like all in shock, and all they're like, what the fuck just happened? Holy shit. And I'm there feeling like a fucking boss, like a fucking god, like, look, I got this fucking stunner with me. I'm gonna pull her home, let's do this shit. So I bounce her downstairs, I take it downstairs with me, and I'm like leaning back. I got all these fucking pickup guys watching me. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. But I have like no idea how to pull or how to actually make this happen. Because at the time I only had a couple of pulls under my belt. So I really didn't have a sense of how to structure a pool, how to structure an interaction, or how to structure leaving the club with a girl. But at the time, one of my main wingman had a little bit more experience than me in terms of pulling. So he came into the set and he was like, dude, pull now. I'm like, huh? What? Okay, pull now. Let's go. After party, drinks at my place. I grab her and I start leading. And I'm sure some of you guys have been in similar situations where, you're not sure, you're not certain exactly what you're doing, you don't really have a game plan, and you kind of just like try to pull the trigger aimlessly. And, you know, after like I managed to actually leave the club with her, and like as I'm walking towards my car, halfway through the walk, she just gives me some objections, and she's like, no, but I can't leave my friends and blah, 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 blah. Let's go back. And I'm like, all right, pool fucks up. I fail, I lose the girl. And I was like super fucking upset about that. So when is an appropriate time to pull the trigger? When should you go for the pull? This is what you have to keep in mind, okay? What you're doing by pulling is that you're asking for a very large step of compliance. And as I mentioned earlier, compliance is proportional to investment plus buying temperature. So the more investment you have, the more likely she is to comply, and the higher state she's in, the more likely she is to comply as well. So you can look at this from two extremes. Say you got the really like drunk, crazy party girl who's just like DTF, and then like you bathroom pull her within 5 minutes. If you view the interaction through the lens of that formula of compliance equals investment plus buying temperature, that girl had a very fucking high buying temperature, but not a lot of investment. So her buying temperature was at a stage where it could compensate for the lack of investment, right? And on the other end of the fucking spectrum, you have the sort of interactions which I tend to have now, where the investment is just built up to such a fucking high degree, and there's almost like there's a little bit of state, there's a little bit of buying temperature, there's a little bit of emotions behind it, but it's mainly just fucking investment, to the point where she's almost pulling me. So generally, when you're looking to pull the trigger, ask yourself, do I have like a reasonable amount of investment, and is the girl, you know, ideally is the girl in a high emotional state? Because investment is a very, very difficult concept for new guys to grasp, and they don't really understand like how much investment they have at a certain point in the interaction. What I would say is begin viewing investment simply as on a very fundamental and on a very basic level, on a very newbie level, begin viewing investment as just how much face time you have with the girl, right? Because by spending time with you, she's incurring an opportunity cost, right? She could be doing anything else with that time, and it is a form of investment, right? There are other forms of investments which can amplify that further, but spending time with you is a huge one. So generally, if you spend about an hour to an hour and a half with the girl, that's usually the required amount of investment for, you know, a newer guy that you need to actually execute the pull effectively and actually manage to pull the girl. So I'm going to kind of run through the structure of what a pull is supposed to look like in a very traditional sense. And then I'm also going to provide you guys for my own unique methods of pulling, which basically work a lot more consistently than the traditional methods. Like literally, like some of this shit that I've done never fucking fails. And it's pretty advanced stuff. So like you guys are going to have to bear with me here. Okay, so for a traditional pull, the steps go something like this. Step number one, you need to seed potential pull ideas into the conversation. Step number two, screen for logistics and then problem solve common objections before they arise. Step number three, baby step the pull so that it's several smaller chunks of compliance instead of like one big one. And step number four, you deal with objections as they arise. So what does seeding mean? For anybody who doesn't know, this basically means establishing a premise for the pull before you actually go for the pull, right? Planting an idea in the girl's mind of something that you two can do later outside of the club, right? So when you do actually go for the pull, it's not a complete surprise. And she's also acting on some sort of excuse to leave with you. Generally, you want to be threading several different ideas and see which one piques their interest the most, right? So the most common ones are like after party, drinks at and you don't actually go for the after party initially. You just bring up the idea. You just see the idea in her mind. So after party is a common one, drinks at my place, movie, come eat my pet goldfish is a good one. Come eat my cat, he'll love you. There's a cool fucking restaurant you need to check out, right? These are all potential ideas of how you can, you know, seed the pool, get the idea in her mind rolling of leaving the fucking club with you for a reason. Now, the rest of the process is actually very, very difficult to explain without any sort of context, without, you know, just me trying to explain it in a vacuum without infield or without context. So what I'm going to do here is, you know, pick a specific example and run through like that example with you and how all those steps are applied so that you get a better sense of it and that you guys can understand it on a deeper level. So I know a lot of you guys here in the Sydney community go to the fucking Argyle on the weekend. It's a great place. I go there too sometimes. And just for the sake of simplicity, for the example we're going to run with, right next to the Argyle, there is a 24-hour restaurant called Pancakes on the Rocks. It's a pretty cool place. So I use that as, you know, as the example for seeding the pool and how a pool is supposed to be structured depending on that. Right. So you've now got the girl in isolation with you, right? Maybe the logistical situation is something like she has 3 friends who are on the dance floor. She's here with isolation. She's here in isolation with you. And her logistical situation is such that she has to leave with those 3 people, with those 3 friends at the end of the night, right? She arranged to leave with those 3 people. And maybe she even has work like 8 a.m., right? So it's a pretty complicated logistical situation, okay? Now, the first step is once you're in isolation, once you're in conversation, seed the idea of checking out this Pancakes place and ideally build a little bit of excitement and buzz around it. So you can say something like, oh, you've never been to Pancakes on the Rocks? Shit, you are fucking missing out. After you eat at this place, food will never taste the same again. Right? You build a little bit of, you build it up a bit, you build some buzz and excitement around it. And usually, even though she might not fully buy into the idea yet, she'll at least demonstrate a little bit of interest, which is what you really need here. Now, you don't directly go for, okay, let's go to Pancakes. You kind of want to baby step that. So say you're upstairs in isolation with her on the dance floor, in the couches, whatever. The first step after seating it would be take her downstairs and just get her closer to the fucking exit door, right? So just lead, be like, hey, it's so fucking stuffy in here. It's getting really hot. Let's go outside, grab some fresh air, grab her by the hand, lead her. Now you're one step fucking closer to this pancake place. Instead of asking for the big step of fucking compliance, you're asking for just a small little baby step. Now, once you're close to the exit, that's when you suggest you go to the fucking pancake place, and that's when you actually execute on going to the fucking pancake place. So that's saying something like, you know, grabbing a girl's hand, putting it on your stomach and be like, wow, can you fucking feel how hungry I am? Shit, pancakes, let's go, right? Now, ideally, you kind of also want to deal with the common objections here before they arise. So, I mean, the common objections will be the friends. So you want to add in there something like, but we have to go quick now so that we'll be back in time to catch your friends, right? So boom, you kind of like preempt that objection and you clearly state that you're going to be back. It's not just like ditching the fucking club to go for the pancakes. It's like, no, we're going to go for a bit and then we're going to come back. And then you kind of like preempt that objection before it even arises. And usually what will happen is that you might get a little bit of token resistance. Where the girl will be like, oh, I don't know, maybe she's kind of like on the fence about it, but she won't even give you like a real excuse. It's just like a little bit of indecisiveness that you have to, now it's up to you to like knock her off the fence and just take control of the situation by leading and just, you know, taking her hand, leading her outside and executing on the idea itself. Now, after you start actually leaving the venue with a girl, and this is super fucking key here as well, and where a lot of guys kind of like mess up their pools, is that they tend to just fucking go quiet, right? So the conversation is like hitting off in the nightclub, and then as soon as you grab the girl by the hand, you walk outside of the venue with her, the conversation kind of like dies down. and it creates a little bit of an awkward tension, awkward silence, and that is the worst thing that can possibly fucking happen. Because when it goes silence, her focus will now be on the situation and what she's doing and on the sluttiness of what she's doing, which is really bad for you because she can then change her mind at any moment and go back. So the key here is to use what we call pool talk. Now, this doesn't have to be any fancy verbal shit. This is just like verbal vomit, essentially, like verbal bamboozlement, right? Spill and spew whatever bullshit you have to say to come out of your fucking mouth, right? We'd walk by like a 7-Eleven. I'd be like, oh, look at the fucking 7-Eleven lights. How cool is that? Like green, white, red. I like those colors. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Cool. Anyways, blah, 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 blah. Right? And when you just keep talking like that, even though it's not, it's not a great game or whatever, your only objective here is to keep her logical mind occupied. And because we as humans have a very limited capacity of focus, then immediately, like she can't focus on both the fact that she's leaving the club with you and that's slutty, and on what you're saying at the same time. So she's just going to be focused on what you're saying and not on the sluttiness of the situation, which is good for you. What's the next bit? All right. So you begin walking, and what you're doing here, you're not actually trying to take her to Pancakes on the fucking rocks, right? You're not trying to take her to the restaurant. You're not trying to take her for food. Again, begin with the end in mind. Your goal is to get her back to your place, and that was just a baby step to get her outside of the club. Now, as you're outside of the club, you keep walking, you do your pool talk. A minute or two later, you need to do what we call changing courses of action. Basically, suggest a new plan that involves going back to yours. So say something like, you know what? Actually, I just realized they're fucking closed on a Friday night or like Saturday night or whatever. Fuck it. Are you adventurous? I just remembered I have the best fucking wine back at my place, and it's literally like 10 minutes away. All right, let's go. We'll be back in like 5 minutes. Now, this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky, and this is where like most guys don't really have the balls or shamelessness to execute after they kind of like planted the idea of Pancakes. They're not shameless enough to be like, oh, like let's go back to mine now instead. But again, it's just something you need to fucking be doing if you want to be pulling. But this is also where the most skill comes in, because usually at this stage, after you suggest, you're now basically going for the hard close, right? Back to your place. And now at this point, she's going to be throwing any and every objection that she has your way. And it's up to you to deal with those objections. So I'm going to give you guys some of the best techniques that nobody's really talked about before, other than me, of course, how to deal with those objections and how to overcome those objections. So let's first examine what the most common objections are and run through them one by one and how to deal with each of them. So some of the most common ones: I can't leave my friends behind. I have work early tomorrow morning. I barely know you. I have plans after this. It's too far away. Right? Those are the 5 most common ones. And where most guys fuck up is that instead, they're very persistent, but instead of providing the girl with actual solutions to legitimately solve these objections, they just keep pushing for it. So she'd be like, oh no, I can't leave my friends now. I promised I'd get a cab back home with them. Right? And the girl would be like, oh no, let's go. It's just like 5 minutes. Right? That's fucking stupid. You're not actually providing her with a reason she should come with you, right? And it's not going to satisfy her logical brain, right? You need to keep a balance between logical and emotional, and unless you can satisfy her emotional brain too, then and deal with those objections, she's just not going to fucking come with you. So I'm going to give you guys the techniques here to override those objections and to make them seem almost like fucking irrelevant, right? And almost make them look ridiculous. So these are the techniques for doing so. And these are essentially the same techniques like high-end marketers use to get sales. So number 1 is what we call commitment and consistency bias. What this means is that people tend to go to great lengths in order to appear consistent with their words and with their actions. So if you pretense to pull, like I did, like I mentioned before, by throwing in there just the casual, are you adventurous? You know, imposing that frame on the interaction. And the beauty here is that she doesn't even have to agree with that. As long as she doesn't disagree, that's the frame that's imposed. Now, people go to great lengths in order to be consistent with their words and their actions. And if you're able to impose the frame of her being adventurous, she's going to want to live up to those expectations, right? So when you go for the pull, she's a lot more likely to comply. Now, that's just that's one of the key elements that not many guys seem to be incorporating, that if you do, most of our objections are just going to, you know, fall the fuck flat. Number two, authority. Human beings are hardwired to respond to authority. And if you just add a tone of authority to the way that you speak and a tone of certainty and speak in short, sharp sentences, then again, that's going to give her more incentive to come with you. So those are the two first ones: commitment, consistency bias, authority. The third one is urgency, right? Basically telling her this is all, you know, we got to do this now or never, right? It's a one-time deal. The fourth one is scarcity. You know, people are highly motivated by the fact that they might miss out on something. So you're basically providing her with an ultimatum. It's like, we really enjoy getting to know each other. It's now or never. You can either come now with me or you lose me for good. And number five is a safety net, where when you're going for that hard close, you're not necessarily building it up and talking about how fucking awesome it is to come back to yours. Rather, more so you're selling the fact that it's not a big deal if she wants to at any time come back. Right? So it's only 10 minutes from here. You don't have to worry about it. If at any time, you know, you want to come back, we'll head straight back. So let's see how those techniques kind of apply to the specific objections that she gives. So number one, always start with pretensing your, you know, your intention to pull with the commitment and consistency bias, right? Number two, say she's like, oh, but I can't leave my friends behind. So the way to deal with that objection is saying something like, listen, me neither. I literally have to be back here by like 1:30 a.m. to pick up my friend. Otherwise, he's going to have no fucking place to sleep tonight, right? Don't worry, we'll be back here before the place closes so that you can catch up with your friends and I can pick my friend up so he doesn't fucking sleep on the street tonight, right? And when you show her that you also need to be back, it gives her that reason to trust you and to believe you. And it kind of like overrides that objection, basically. So her concern is that she needs to be back in time to meet her friends, to get the cab back, and you tell her that you will be back because you're the one who needs to be back for your friends as well. Number three, I have work early tomorrow morning. Again, you kind of want to override these objections before they even arise. So even if you can incorporate this into your initial idea of pulling, then it's saying something like, look, don't worry, I have to be at office by 8 a.m. tomorrow. I start fucking super early. We'll be back here in time for you to go home with your friends, just like you planned. But we have to go now. Otherwise, if we wait any longer, we're not going to be able to make it back in time before the club closes and you'll miss it. Right? So that's how you incorporate a little bit of urgency there. It's like, we have to go now. Otherwise, if we leave any later, it's like fucking done. We won't be able to go at all. And I really enjoy spending time with you. I really enjoy getting to know you. This is going to be fucking awesome. But unless we leave right now, like, we won't be able to get back in time to meet up with your friends and for me to get my fucking friend, right? That's how you incorporate that little bit of urgency there. Objection number four, I barely know you. So in order to deal with this, you need to be saying something like, well, listen, I think we can both agree, I really enjoy spending time with you. I really enjoy getting to know you. And this is where you kind of like incorporate scarcity here as well. We're like, listen, I'm so fucking busy throughout the week. I literally work 16-hour days. I barely even have time to see my mom or like to see my best friends, right? So chances are we won't even get to see each other in the future. Like, I want to, but now is the best time, right? Because even if I wanted to, even if I do want to meet up with you again, I literally work 16 fucking hour days and it might not end up working, We might not be able to find a point in your schedule where it's just both of us, right? So you add in a little bit of scarcity there where it's almost like a one-time offer. It's like, if you don't come with me now, you don't get to spend more time with me. Like, I know you enjoy getting to know me. I enjoy getting to know you too. But unless you actually, take this next decisive step, it's all over for us. We lose everything we've built up throughout the entire night. Number 5, it's too far away. Again, just like whip out your fucking phone, show us some random spot on the map and be like, look, it's literally like 10 fucking minutes away. And again, this is where you incorporate like the safety net, where you like sell the fact that we can just be back, we can just come back at any time. Listen, it's like 10 fucking minutes away. If at any time you want to come back, I fucking have to be back by 1:30 as well. If at any time we want to be back, we can just immediately get in a fucking cab and be right back here within 10 fucking minutes. This is the next fucking thing I want to talk about. Okay, now you do need to be a little bit flexible here, because sometimes you're just going to have certain girls who throw other random objections at you out of the blue, and you need to be able to, be swift in your problem solving skills so that you can come up with new solutions on the fly. But so for example, I recently pulled a girl who actually worked at Argyle, and she wouldn't like leave the club with me initially because she didn't trust me. She's like, oh, you're just like all the other guys. You just want one thing, yada, yada, yada. She had some fucking issues in previous relationships or whatever, so she didn't really like trust men. So that was the objection presented to me. Right? Now, how do I go about solving that objection? I try to run through my usual shtick with the scarcity, with the urgency, with the money back guarantee, the safety net, all of that shit. I tried to do all that, didn't really work. This is a new objection. It doesn't really cover those. So again, what's something I can use to overcome that objection, to override that objection? Basically, the way I was able to offer her a solution so that she would come with me was to say something like, listen, I know you work here and you're friends with all the fucking bouncers. So if you come with me and I get out of line, or if anything happens, you just tell your big bouncer friends and I'll be fucking banned from my favorite nightclub. Right? I basically give her a little bit of leverage over me, and that allows her to trust me. That allows me to overcome that objection of trust, or of lack of trust between us. Now, just to kind of like wrap up this this idea of like structuring a traditional pool, don't get overwhelmed by all of this. I know this was like really, really dense content, and most likely in a typical pool, in a typical scenario, you'll get maybe like 1 or 2 objections, right? If any at all. You're not going to have to do everything that I ran through with you guys here today, but I just wanted to, cover everything anyways. But overall, it's a little bit of a risky move, doing the changing courses of action and getting her to like ditch her friends back at the nightclub, to jump in a fucking taxi with you, to jump in a car with you, and to like bounce out. And sometimes, even though your objection handling skills may be like 110 fucking % on point, she might just strictly out of principle and out of the person that the girl is, she just might not come with you regardless. And that's when you get that's when, like, no matter how good your like skills are, you'll still get a lot of not a lot, but you'll still get a decent amount of pools that fail and that just don't actually commit to going with you. And so that's why I don't really go about it this way. I've actually developed a more unique way that I end up in a situation where I don't even really need to deal with objections, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to run with you guys here through quickly. It's actually fucking 2:30 now, so we've already been at an hour. I'm going to try to smash down through the rest of the content as fast as I possibly can, without going too much fucking overtime. So this is what I would do. This is what I usually do. I don't do it the way that I described it to you guys. Now, that way that I described to you guys works, but this is how I do it. Instead of actually seeding a legitimate idea, I do almost the opposite. And I almost make fun of like seeding the pool by letting her know that as soon as we get into isolation with her, my dick is going inside her, right? Remember what we said in the beginning about beginning with the end in mind, right? If you pull in the traditional way, you're also going to, an additional problem with that is that apart from the fact that a lot of the time it just fucks up, it's not 100% reliable, a lot of the times you're going to get LMR as well, right? I want to fucking deal with that before I even get her in isolation, right? I want to deal with that before I pull. I'm looking to preempt all those issues so that they don't give me fucking headaches later on. So at some point in the interaction, could be 15 minutes in, could be 20 minutes in, at a point of like heightened sexual tension, like maybe after I just kissed her, or maybe I got her up close to me, I got her up by the waist, I look her dead in the eye and say something like, in a really fucking like chody and obvious way, I'd be like, so let's go back to mine later and watch a movie. Like very, very chody, to the point where like it's obvious that I mean have sex. And then she would usually like playfully deny me. She's like, haha, no, I can't. And then you misinterpret that by saying something like, all right, well, I guess we can have sex as well. Right? And what that does is, by almost like making fun of the traditional way of seeding the pool, is that the girl now understands the gist of your expectations and the gist of your intentions, and all your expectations are laid bare on the table, right? She understands that as soon as you get back into isolation with her, back at your place to the sex location, then it's purely for sex and nothing else. And that's when all like the fucking LMR disappears. So that's a good little trick there. But what I do to actually seed, I've tried to develop a system where it would work for guys who essentially like almost have no game, right? So even if your game sucks, even if you don't know how to build investment, how to build compliance, like this would still fucking work for you. Just because you're able to manipulate the situation so well. What I do instead of seeding the idea for an after party, for a food place or whatever, I ask for a lot less compliance than that. And that's the beauty in this method. You can have shit game and still pull it off. So after you screen for where she lives, I usually throw in a comment, something like, oh, that's awesome. That's actually on my way home. I'm driving tonight. I can give you a lift home at the end of the night if you want. I can drop you off home. Now, I don't actually live near the girl. I just say that, and you don't even need to be driving to be doing this, because again, as you'll see later, you're always thinking 10 steps ahead, and the goal is not to actually drive her home, right? Now, I might still say that. I'll still say that whether I'm driving or whether I'm not driving that night. And the kind of like trick here is that no girl that likes you at least a little bit is going to refuse a lift home. Right? No girl's going to be like, no, actually, I want to pay $30 for a taxi to get home. She'll be like, oh, fucking sweet. Yeah, I'll take a lift home. Free value, right? So it's kind of like a win-win, free value. She doesn't have to pay for a cab. And you've now planted the idea that you two are leaving the club together at the end, but not for an actual activity, not for an after party. So it doesn't require any sort of compliance, really. It requires like this much, whereas like pulling, like, seeding the pool for an after party, for a food place, and executing on that requires that much compliance. Seeding the pool and executing on telling a girl that you'll give her a lift home at the end of the night requires like this much fucking compliance. So it's a lot easier. Now, one like little subtlety here is that make sure you wait at least like 15 or 20 minutes before you say this, so the girl knows that you're not a complete fucking psychopath, and she's actually comfortable getting in a car with you. Now, in this specific situation, I would say the ideal time to pull the trigger is either once the club closes and she naturally has to leave anyway, so that you don't have to face all the objections of like leaving the friends behind, yada, yada, yada. Either when the club closes, or at the very least, after the friends have already left the club. So huge benefit of this method of seeding the pool by telling her that you'll give her a lift home at the end of the night is that even if her friends want to leave the club at like 2 and the club closes at 3, and say you're in there with your girl, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this, the friends come to collect her. They're like, Amanda, we're going home now. Let's go. The the beauty here is that if you suggest that you're going to give her a lift home at the end of the night, you can actually take control of that situation and get the friends to let her stay with you while they leave the club. So you can say something like, hey, listen, we really enjoying spending time with each other. We're going to have one more drink. Sorry, it's my phone. So you say something like, when the friends come to collect it, you say something like, listen, I really enjoy getting to spend time with Amanda. We're just going to get one more drink. You guys head off. I'm going to drive her home at the end of the night. Don't worry. She'll get home safe. You have my word. All right. And usually the girls will have a minute or two of girl talk. And if your girl has initially already agreed to let you drive her home, then usually she's gonna, tell her friends that it's all cool and they can leave, and she'll get home by letting you drop her off, right? So now you end up in a situation where the friends are like completely irrelevant. The friends have already fucking left, and at that point, it's almost like game over as it is. So what you need to be doing from there is, once the friends leave, you can essentially decide when you want to pull. It's all kind of in your hands. If you want to make things very fucking simple for yourself to make sure that you maximize every pull opportunity and not really fuck it up, you give yourself the least chance of fucking it up. You pull the trigger at the very end of the night when the club closes anyway, right? So that the way there is no excuses. She's already fucking leaving the club anyway. But if you want to do it, if you don't have the patience for that, you can also pull a little bit earlier, but ideally you do it once the friend's already gone, so you don't have to face that huge objection. And that's the biggest objection that fucks you up in the traditional pull method that I described earlier, right? It's just the friends are back then, she doesn't want to ditch them, but now that they're out of the picture, she has nothing to ditch. She's leaving nothing behind. And again, the idea is that you're not actually driving her home. The idea is that you're going to change courses of action, like you did previously, but now you're going to be facing a lot less objections when you go to change courses of action. So when you leave, you say the club closes and you leave with her, and you walk towards your car or whatever, whether you're driving or not, it's kind of irrelevant. What I usually do, again, is now suggest an alternative plan of action. So I would turn to the girl and say something like, listen, I really enjoy getting to spend time with you. This has been so cool. I almost wasn't going to come out tonight, and I'm so glad I did. And I'm just so fucking busy throughout the week. I work 16-hour days. I barely have time to see my fucking mom. And I really want to spend a little bit more time with you now. Let's go hang out at mine for a little bit, and then I'll drive you home afterwards. Now, at this point, you don't really need to say, let's go back to mine, let's go to an after party, let's go for drinks or anything like that. You can be very straight up with your intentions. You don't have to disguise it, because there's nobody around to judge her anyway, right? The friends are already gone. The people from the nightclub are already gone. She's outside of the fucking club with you. And, she's not facing that judgment. So you can be a lot more direct about it. And again, she will throw some objections at you, but it's going to be nowhere near as tough as the objections she throws in the traditional pulling method, right? Because those objections are already out of the picture. Now, the two biggest ones I've found that tend to come up when you go about it this way are that she feels a little bit afraid that you might actually just take her back to your place, fuck her, and then kick her out and not actually drive her home. So at this point, you need to be a little bit more of a gentleman about it. So be like, listen, I genuinely fucking enjoy spending time with you. We can go hang out at mine a little bit, and then I promise I'll drive you back home later, right? Something like that. Or you can just be like, make up some excuse of why you have to come back into this area anyway. And when you do, you're going to drop her back home. So you can be like, listen, I have to fucking, pick up my friend, drop something off, yada, 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 at this place later on anyway. So I fucking have to come back here anyway. And when I do, I'll drop you back home here. I'll drop you back here as well. So that's how that one kind of goes. And I mean, usually I jump into a little bit of a spiel if she does you know, give me more objections. But I mean, like 99% of the times, that's literally the only objection she has now, is that like she's scared that you will fuck her and then kick her out. So it's very easy to deal with. Her friends are out of the picture. She's a lot more likely to come back with you, and you know, it just makes things super fucking easy. You change now. The one other subtlety I will mention here is that don't expect the girl to be like, yeah, let's go back to yours now. Fuck yeah, right? Don't expect her to be like overly agreeable verbally. Just expect her to be like, okay, right? And then you fucking lead, right? You take initiative and you fucking lead. Now, unfortunately, we're kind of like out of time. We've already gone over time a little bit. And I wanted to jump into like, I had a little bit more content prepared about creative, like handling creative logistics, basically handling more complex and complicated situations than that. But I'm not really going to have time to jump into that here. What's been really cool actually is that the past week, we're going to do Q&A in a bit, guys, by the way, don't worry. So if you have any questions, just hold on to them for a couple of more minutes and we'll jump straight back into them. But what's been really cool that like over the past week, I've actually been going out filming to film infield, and I've gotten like, I went out on the Tuesday night, not this past week, but the week before that, and I pulled by 11:30, got it on camera, which I thought was fucking sick, explained all these concepts to a fucking T so I could give to you guys. Unfortunately, the audio kind of like fucked up with that a little bit. But luckily, you know, I pulled again on the Wednesday night straight after that, and I got some fucking sick infield. Literally taking these concepts and demonstrating these concepts that we spoke about here today, which might seem a little bit vague, a little bit esoteric, and give them context, give you something, give you guys like a demonstration of how to actually apply this so you can replicate it on a very consistent basis. And overall, 2017 is going to be a huge fucking year for those of you guys that like my content. I'm going to make it my personal fucking mission to make sure that I deliver the highest quality infield breakdowns in the entire fucking industry. Super technical stuff that you can replicate straight away, and like 110% self-reliant games so that you don't have to rely on wingman, state, building momentum, or any of that shit. And you can get lane on a very fucking consistent basis just by replicating the processes that I teach you. Which also reminds me, I kind of also want to introduce you guys to, or mention to you guys that I've actually just finished trialing a new form of online mentorship. And because I get so many requests to do Skype coaching from guys overseas, from guys outside of Australia, I get maybe like 5 to 10 new fucking messages a week of guys asking me to mentor them online through Skype. So I kind of like developed a new system where instead of just offering regular Skype coaching, I would offer something a lot better than that. Now, don't get me wrong, Skype is cool, Skype sessions are cool, and you can get a lot out of them, right? Anytime you're sitting down with a guy who's more advanced than you, who's been through your sticking points and who's conquered your fucking sticking points, and you're having a one-on-one discussion, immediately your game is just going to propel to the next level. There's no fucking doubt about it. But the thing with Skype coaching I've found is that it sorely lacks something. It's missing something, and I just couldn't quite put my finger on exactly what that thing was. Because with the light boot camps that I give, the students have been getting insane fucking results. And from you guys in the Cindy community, I mean, you know the guys that I coach personally, like Rahul, for example. It's a short Indian guy. He got a threesome with 2 gorgeous American girls halfway through the boot camp. And you know, Andrew as well is an Asian guy who I had 4 night game sessions with. He pulled literally every single fucking time, literally every single session. And white girls as well, like a couple of Italian girls and an Aussie girl as well. So these students have been making like massive breakthroughs. And, you know, the Skype students were doing well as well, right? Their understanding of game was getting more solid, more condensed. They were building up confidence. They were getting a couple of lays here and there, but they just weren't making that same type of breakthrough. And I was wondering, like, what the fuck made that big discrepancy? Why that huge discrepancy? Because I provided them with the same content, the same advice, and the same techniques to implement. until I fucking realized it was all in the goddamn application of it, right? So the biggest difference was the application of the stuff that I was giving to them. And I had to figure out a way to be there for them without physically being there for them, right? So these guys on Skype, they needed, or online mentorships, they needed fucking accountability, right? They needed the accountability to push themselves out of their comfort zones and to execute the stuff that I was teaching them so that they get that initial burst of results that's required to give their brain permission to start fucking crushing it. Like day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, right? So that they get the full fucking lifestyle of being a pimp player and they actually experience that deep identity, self-esteem level change that's required to go through if you want to reach a very high level in game, right? They needed the accountability so that when they go in set, they don't leave too early, right? They needed the accountability to make sure that they don't miss out on any potential pool opportunities. And I'm sure many of you guys have experienced this, where you walk up to a girl and, you know, she's into you for the first 10, 15 minutes, but then the vibe just fucking dies down. She loses interest. You have no fucking idea why. And then you see her 5 minutes later making out with some tall guy in the corner and you're just like, fuck. And you become super fucking frustrated. Right? In addition, these guys also needed fucking feedback. They needed the live feedback, right? Feedback on the way that they managed their night. So they set themselves up for success with the proper strategies as opposed to just constantly experiencing fucking state crashes. And they needed feedback on some of the unconscious habits that they were executing that they didn't even know they had, that kept them in the same fucking plateaus for months and months. And they needed feedback on the actual execution of the techniques that I provided them with, on the investment techniques, so that they can actually get the full maximum effect out of them. The bottom line is these guys needed more than just like the Skype coaching, right? I mean, Skype calls are great, but they're like brainstorming. They're like bouncing ideas back and forth, and they're great for guys who don't know what to do, right? But you can understand and logically know what to do on a logical level. You can understand how to open, how to hook, how to make a chase, how to get her invested, how to screen, how to structure a pool, all the stuff we talked about today, et cetera, et cetera. You can understand all of that on a logical level, but you might still not understand it intuitively, which is where it counts. So that once you're actually set, once you're in field, you might freeze up or you might get stuck, right? And you don't really know how to push through that plateau. So the way I get my life students to make those like huge fucking breakthroughs that I described earlier, like threesomes, pulling 4 nights out of 4 nights, is through, number one, accountability, demonstrations, and feedback. So I kind of try to like get those benefits into the online mentorship. I had to figure out a way of doing that. And so after sitting down with an advanced group of guys I called the Syndicate, I managed to come up with a new fucking system. A system where I'm actually able to fucking keep you guys accountable, even though I'm not physically there present with you. A system where I can actually give you live feedback. And a system where I can give you demonstrations on exactly the type of situations that keep holding you back, keep you confused, and keep you fucking frustrated. Right? The Syndicate is an advanced group of pickup guys, professional bodybuilders, insanely successful businessmen, and meditation teachers that I've been fortunate enough to connect with. Right? And these guys understand the ins and the fucking outs of learning new skills and mastering new skills, mastering difficult skills, how to get laid, how to get jacked and ripped, how to make $1 million online, and how to be fucking happy. And so I sat down with these guys for hours and hours and hours to develop this system where you don't only get content, but also the type of feedback that you need and the accountability to keep you going and to push through, as well as the fucking demonstrations, which will show you exactly how to overcome your current fucking sticking points. So this program, this online mentorship, is basically designed to turn you into a fucking beast with women, not only with women, but in life in general. Now, I'm not gonna get into the details here because I have like guys from other companies watching this webinar here too, and I don't want them stealing these new methods that I've developed. But if you're serious about getting your fucking shit handled in 2017, then make sure to fucking get in touch with me and we can discuss more details as well. But realize too, dudes, like this shit's not for everyone. You know, if you're after quick results, this shit is not for you, right? As with everything, practice makes perfect. And if you're expecting to be a fucking couch potato and just consume content all day and get good, you know, man, I got news for you. It's not going to fucking happen. Or if you're trying to like, you know, go sign up to a fucking program where the guy tells you he'll get you instant fucking results overnight, turn the fucking other way and run, because it's a scam, right? Those guys are marketers and they prey on greed, they prey on laziness. And, you know, this program, this online mentorship is not for people who want to get good by doing nothing, right? Like I said, a major part of this new system is a revolutionary new way to keep you guys fucking accountable so that you push through and you push just as hard as the most gangster and advanced pickup guys out there, break through and finally, you know, get those like high level results. Now, as well, this is not for guys who want to sleep with a bunch of low quality women just to increase their fucking leg count, right? Yes, by doing this, your leg count will increase, but I'm not looking to teach you how to sleep with 100 new fucking girls a year, right? If you want to like amp your fucking leg count by, you know, pulling a bunch of mediocre girls, then yeah, get in touch with me and I'll recommend some other guys to do it with. But my focus is on teaching you how to meet, attract, and keep high quality girls, get rotations with them, get threesomes with them, and build the highest quality lifestyle that you can possibly fucking achieve, right? I mean, everybody has different goals. I just chose to focus my attention on keeping high quality girls around, getting them to do threesomes with me, and living the lifestyle of like a high-end player, essentially. Who is this program actually for? This is for those guys who, you know, get a little bit of results from time to time, but are not quite there yet, right? You're getting laid, but not consistently. You're meeting a lot of new girls, but not the 8s, not the 9s, not the 10s. You know what to do, but you can't make yourself quite do it. Or you think you know what you should be doing and you're doing it, but for some inexplicable reason, shit just doesn't work out, right? Maybe you're shy and you know that you should be approaching, you should be pushing through, but you just can't seem to get the better of approach anxiety, right? It gets the fucking better of you every single time. So what am I really talking about here? It's called the Syndicate, right? And it's a completely new method of online coaching that once I get it out there and once word gets out, it will be fucking copied by every single company in the industry. So I can't exactly give you guys the full details here, but please, if you're interested, inbox me now on Facebook and I'll get in touch with you. Now, apart from just like the accountability, the feedback, and the demonstrations, what you'll also learn in this program is the entire outer game processes are used to become insanely fucking consistent, right? So what we discussed here today is like game 1.0, right? How to isolate a girl from her friends, how to pull a girl, right? What you learn here is the paradigm above that where the girl just isolates for you or where the girl pulls you, okay? And that's really, really dense content that I just can't give away for free. You'll learn how to never get LMR again. You know, I showed you one little trick here today, but there's a whole lot more to it than just that, right? You'll learn how to fucking screen properly so that you don't end up in situations where, you know, you just waste your time on a girl who's secretly unavailable with a girlfriend, or maybe she's super religious and not going to sleep with you anyway. And just like saving time by avoiding the time wasters is going to like double your fucking leg count because you can put it to better use elsewhere. All right, you'll see how to get girls beginning to massively fucking invest and chase you so that they're actually the ones who become clingy and needy on you, right? Not the other way around, which will not only make them more likely to sleep with you, but also more likely to stick around afterwards, be submissive to you, and do fucking threesomes with you. All right, now, I'm not going to bore you guys here with details, but since you guys have been so fucking good and you stuck around till the very end of the seminar, we'll do Q&A just in a bit now. Since you guys have been so good, just for those of you who are still on the webinar here today right now, what I'm going to do is actually offer a couple of fucking insane bonuses as well. So the first bonus, and this is fucking crazy. I can't believe I actually managed to do this. It took so much negotiating and back and forth on my end, but I managed to get the 2 best guys I know in game, the 2 best fucking naturals that I know, to let me film them and break down their infield footage for you. Right now, I've been in game for a very long time. I've hung out with the best PUA coaches in the world, with the best instructors from RSD. You know, I've hung in, I've gamed with Julian, with Max, with Todd, with all those guys. I've been offered positions in like prominent, established UK-based pickup companies, and I've seen all their top instructors game. And with RSD guys and with the other guys, I wasn't blown away, right? I saw them game and I'm like, yeah, this is cool. This is what I do on the fucking daily, right? Let's all enjoy it. Let's all enjoy it. Let's all get pussy, right? But I wasn't blown away. It wasn't particularly impressive. Now, when I go out with these fucking natural bodies of mine, I'm blown the fuck away every single time. Their game is something so incredibly unique that any professional pickup coach that has to actually like proactively learn this couldn't even replicate. So I really wanted to get that to you guys out there. And, you know, initially they weren't really interested in being involved because they got other shit going on in their lives. But after like fucking hours and hours and hours of fucking negotiating, I managed to let them film them so I can provide the infield for you guys. Now, they can't even break their fucking infield down by themselves, right? What they're doing is like 100% subconscious. But because I had to fucking struggle with this so much, I actually have the tools to break down their infield for you. But they've slept with hundreds of girls. You know, they got laid since they were like fucking 12. So everything that they're executing on is all happening subconsciously. Just to give you guys like an indication of how fucking good these guys are and like how much of a step above they are above any professional pickup coach. I had one of them, you know, come out with me the other week, and in the line to get inside the fucking venue, as we were in the beginning of the line to the point where we got to the end of the fucking to the front of the line. During that like 5-minute period, I was speaking to her for a bit. I turned around, I engaged another friend. 5 minutes later, we're at the front of the line. I turn around, I look at him. He's got a fucking girl on his arm. And instead of walking into the entrance of the club with us, he's like, peace, see you later, guys. Bounces out, all right? With a girl he met in line. After 5 minutes, he pulled before even getting inside the fucking club, right? This is some unprecedented shit. This is shit that the pickup community has never fucking seen before. And that I was lucky enough to get you guys to potentially see if you sign up. Now, these guys' frame is fucking incredible. It's out of this world. Their body language is so cool that I'm jealous of it. And, you know, this is a bonus that's only available today. And again, if you're interested in that, make sure to fucking hit me up now on Facebook because after today, these bonuses are going to be completely off the table. Now, another fucking sick bonus I have for you guys is I managed to get a good personal friend of mine to let me interview him in his niche, which is about getting threesomes and orgies. Now, if you're involved in the pickup community, you might know who I'm talking about, but basically this guy charges thousands and thousands of fucking dollars for this information from his private clients about how to build rotations, about how to like get a girl step by step to begin doing fucking threesomes with you, doing foursomes with you, doing fucking orgies with you. Right? And this is information that's not really available for free anywhere, but as a personal favor for me, he agreed to share it for free. Now, in addition to that, I called in another personal favor, this time from a guy who's known as the fucking guy in the community when it comes to getting mentors, right? This guy's had more high-level mentors than anybody fucking else in the pickup community that I know of, right? And he's willing to share all his secrets that he usually charges a lot of money for free, just for you guys who become part of the syndicate, who become part of this group, right? But that's not all. Just so I could make this a fucking no-brainer for you guys. And I know how much you guys enjoy the self-development stuff. You love the self-development content, you know, the fitness, fashion, making money, meditation, all of that stuff. I was actually able to reach out to 2 competitive bodybuilders, a professional male stylist and fashion blogger, and a guy who makes 17 grand a month from a retardedly simple to set up passive income to contribute as well, and a meditation coach and an energy coach, right? Now, they'll teach you how to dress in a way that projects all the right things, how to get big, how to get fucking jacked, and how to set up a passive income so that you can essentially just have more free time to fucking pimp and travel. All right. So for exact details on that, please message me below. And you need to message me within the next 2 hours today for these bonuses, because anybody who signs up for the programs after these next 2 hours, the bonuses will be off the fucking table, right? So again, make sure to fucking contact me now. Now we'll jump into Q&A about the pooling and isolation and all the content we spoke about today in a bit. But I mean, from here on now, you really have a couple of choices, and it's really simple. I mean, number one, you can just keep doing the same shit you've been doing so far. And like Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different type of result. All right. If you keep doing what you're doing and you're inconsistent, frustrated, and confused, then I can fucking promise you, you'll stay nothing but inconsistent, frustrated, and confused. Girls will keep ignoring you, girls will keep fucking flaking you, and girls will keep going home with other guys other than you. Option number two, you can take this amazing fucking opportunity to join one of the strongest up-and-coming brands in the industry for a 45% discount today, while also getting insights from the other most up-and-coming brands in the industry, insights from genius gurus, genius marketers, bodybuilders, and meditation coaches, right? Getting the fucking accountability you need to keep taking action, seeing me demonstrating exactly the things that you struggle with, then breaking it down for you and explain to you how to do it personally. Plus, in addition to, you'll get a lifetime access to exclusive content, hot seat material, and future interviews I do that nobody outside of this little group of the syndicate will ever see, right? So imagine me and my insane natural friends approaching, passing shit tests, making girls chase, making girls invest, pulling and closing with excruciatingly insane consistency, and then breaking that down for you so that you can replicate those exact same processes, and then even getting feedback on what you do, followed by private one-on-one Skype calls with yours truly, where I explain every confusion you have down to a T, push you, support you, and essentially let you in on all the secrets that I would never dare to fucking share publicly. Just imagine what that will do to your game, right? You'll have everything and anything you need to get good at this. There will be no more fucking excuses, right? I guarantee it. Plus, you learn how to create a passive income. Plus, you learn how to get in shape. Plus, you learn how to dress. Plus, you learn how to cultivate more masculine energy and how to become happy, right? Or if none of these options sound good to you, then I'd suggest a third fucking option, right? If you've been doing this for a couple of years and you're still not getting the results that you want, just fucking quit, right? You're not going to get anywhere without coaching. So either get coached or get out. It's really that fucking simple. Anyways, enough with my rant. If you guys are interested, like I said, the bonuses are available only for the guys on the webinar here today, and you need to get in touch with me within 2 hours in order for them to still be on the table. But yeah, fucking amazing to do this webinar with you. I hope you guys got a lot of valuable information out of it. And what I'm going to do now is run through the Q&As. So if you have any questions about isolating, about pulling, about this, about game 1.0, 2.0, about all the stuff that we spoke about today, leave them on the YouTube chat and I'll answer them now. So I'll just jump on the YouTube link now so I can see what questions you guys have. Hold up. if they don't comply when trying to isolate after you follow the steps. But for some reason still doesn't come. All right, so we got a question here. Okay, so what the fuck do you do when you follow these steps, you try to isolate, but for some reason the girl doesn't come? Is damage control a thing? No, not really. I mean, the best way to take that is to just brush it off, like it never even fucking happened. Like you never even like don't try to push on it, right? If she gives you like if she legitimately doesn't seem like she want to come with you, then don't fucking push on the isolation right there and then. Rinse and repeat, right? Ideally, what you want to be doing is, chat for a little bit more, couple more minutes, spike her emotions, and then, I mean, it never doesn't work if you do it at a point of high emotional state, right? So if you learn how to spike a girl's emotions properly, you hit her with a couple of spikes, she's going to want to come with you. She's going to like be compliant to you trying to isolate. So, don't try to do any sort of like damage control. Just gloss over it like nothing happened. Continue with the conversation as normal. Keep chatting, rinse and repeat the process. Spike her emotions. Try again in another couple of minutes. Any more questions? Sorry, I have to be on like the fucking live stream and the YouTube link at the same time in order to see these questions. Do you do boot camps outside Sydney? Upon request, yes, I do. I don't know if that was an actual question. All right, so there was a question in there. Do I do boot camps outside of Sydney? And yes, I do occasionally do boot camps outside of Sydney. It's upon request though, so if you are interested, again, like hit me up on my inbox on Facebook and we can chat in more detail about that. Further questions. Ever done bathroom pools? Yeah, I've got a fucking infield online of me doing a bathroom pool. Okay, so bathroom pooling. This is the gist with fucking bathroom pooling, right? View the interaction through the lens of compliance equals investment plus buying temperature, right? The only requirement essentially required for bathroom pooling is very small compliance, because all you're doing is taking it from like, from one room in the club to another room in the club, right? That's all you're fucking doing. It's almost like the same as leading her from one room of the club to the other, except you're going to need higher buying temperature. And yeah, you're just going to need to learn how to like pump a buying temperature to a very high degree and polarize the interaction really hard. I actually have a full fucking infield on YouTube of me explaining exactly how to do this, exactly how I do it. And, you see the demonstration online, so you can go check that out. It's called The Most Effective Way to Get Laid, Polarize Aggressively and Screen Hard. So if you're interested in learning how to bathroom pool, check that one out. But, generally all it requires is you learning how to pump the girl's buying temperature to like an insanely high amount, an insanely high level, so that she'll come with you to the bathroom. It's not a huge fucking deal. And bathroom sex is uncomfortable as fuck anyway. I like your content, but I'm not that pickup guy who wants to bang tons of girls, but I want to develop as a man in which I have control over social situation, whether at work, becoming a manager, etc., or in a social circle, dealing with social interactions, becoming that charismatic guy. Prob sounds chody, aha. Like game would help in those areas. I mean, of course, so the question was, I'm not really interested in banging like 100 girls. And again, or like 1,000 fucking girls. Again, neither am I at this stage. I've been through all of that. It's exciting in the beginning, but I mean, eventually you want to move on to like doing something more fucking productive with your life rather than fucking girls in the Ivy toilets. So yes, I would say game definitely fucking helps with that. Before I got into game, I was just this introverted fuck who essentially couldn't even open my mouth in a social situation, right? I'd be invited to parties in high school and shit, but I'd always be the guy in the fucking background, just kind of like keeping to myself and not really contributing anything to the conversations, not really having fun. You know, even when this is like how fucking bad it was. Do you guys remember in high school when the teacher got like everybody to read a section, like everybody was reading a common text, like a play or some shit, Shakespeare, and the teacher got every student to read a certain section? Like when it came to my turn to read in front of the whole class, I would freak the fuck up. Like I would freeze up. I would mumble over my sentences. I wouldn't even be able to like get words out of my mouth. It was like that fucking bad, right? I think game is the number one most effective way to develop your overall social skills, right? Because basically what you're doing with game, what you're doing by approaching like a bunch of girls every single night that you go out, you approach groups, you push yourself outside your comfort zone, you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you grow very, very quickly. And if you can handle a situation where you walk up to a girl and she's surrounded by like 5 jacked dudes and you steal her away, and you can get to a level like that in game, do you think giving a presentation at work is going to be difficult? Fuck no. The pressure that you learned how to deal with and the pressure associated in the first scenario of walking up and stealing a sexy girl from a group of like 5 jacked guys is so much higher than the pressure associated with giving a presentation at work or telling a story in a social circle setting, that it's going to be like an absolute, like once you get good at game, doing all those other things is going to be essentially like an absolute fucking joke. So yeah, learn fucking game and all those things will then, you know, fall in place. I live around, so next question. I live around 45 to 16 minutes from the city. How do I get her to her house instead of mine? Okay, so the thing is, for a long time, I also lived about 45 minutes away from the city, and it was never an issue to get it back to mine. I mean, if you kind of like follow the processes I spoke about today, it doesn't matter whether you live 10 minutes from the fucking club. I mean, it helps, but it doesn't really matter, because once she complies and gets in the fucking car with you or gets in the cab with you, she's not really going to be questioning like, oh, it's been more than 15 minutes since we've got in here, right? It's not really going to make much of a difference, right? Ideally, you just want to keep her logical mind occupied and her logical mind engaged with all this pool talk that you're doing, so it doesn't even become an issue. Pulling to the girls' place is a little bit more complicated. I would say maybe like 10% of the girls that I've slept with overall have been in their place. The reason being is that it just introduces so many additional complications to the process that it's not, and it's so unreliable too, right? The girl might live with fucking roommates. The girl might live, even if she doesn't have roommates, which most girls do, she might have housemates, right? Her housemates are going to fucking be judgmental if she brings a random guy home, right? So anytime when you, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced this, where you're trying to pull a girl back to her place and you think you're making progress, you're like, damn, you know, I got back to her place, but you don't close. Like that shit was all for nothing. You were never going to close if you got back to hers anyway, because she wasn't going to fuck you there, right? She won't even live with her parents. it just introduces too many unreliable variables that are outside of your control. Trying to pull back to her place. So I would recommend it. I would recommend get your fucking logistics handled. Even if you live 45 to 60 minutes away from the city, that's not a fucking issue. Right? Another option, get a fucking car. Start closing doors in your car. All right. Super fucking simple one. You can park like 5 minutes away from the club. And again, you barely need any sort of like compliance to pull to your car because it's like a 5-minute walk. So that makes it super simple. I mean, the sex is not amazing. You cramp up a lot, but I mean, it's better than nothing if you don't actually have a place that you can pull to. If it becomes like a very last resort, pulling back to a girl's place, like you literally have no other options, then yeah, try it, do it, but don't really expect anything to happen even once you do get back to her place. And the way to go about it is literally just fucking stick in set and give her excuses as to why you're sticking in set and be shameless about it. So if it goes like, oh, I live in North Sydney, I'd be like, oh, cool, I live in North Sydney. Let's split a cab. You get in the fucking cab. She's like, oh, I live here. I'm like, oh, cool, I live here. And then again, you change courses of action. You're like, either you're like, oh, let's do shots back at your place, yada, yada, yada. Or, oh, I'm supposed to be staying at my friend's house. He's not picking up his phone. Can I jump in? Can I just like, come upstairs with you guys for like 5 minutes and then I'll jump back down once he picks up his phone, right? You change course of action. Or the easiest one, can I use your bathroom? Right, so fucking simple. You jump out, you're like, my friend's not picking up his phone, can I really use your toilet real quick? And of course they're gonna let you in. But again, it seems like you're making progress towards closing more girls, but you're not really, because simply she's not gonna fuck you at her place a lot of the times. Next question. Help, my self-esteem is falling. This could be like a fucking 10-day seminar just on self-esteem. I mean, dude, there's like a right way to learn game and there's a wrong way to learn game. And for the longest time, for the first 2 years, I learned game the wrong way. And I learned game in such a way that was actually detrimental to my self-esteem. So my results were, it was like an inverse relationship. My results were increasing, but my self-esteem was getting shit up. And I was so confused as to why this was fucking happening. But the easiest way to really solidify a strong sense of self-trust and self-esteem is, number one, I would recommend go read The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branson. He talks about living consciously and habits you can actually implement into your daily life to increase your self-esteem. But if we're talking about it from a purely pickup perspective, I know this sounds a bit cliche, but you have to be yourself when you're talking to the girl. Meaning that if you put on any sort of front, if you put on any sort of shtick and you manage to get the girl, you're still going to feel rejected on the inside. You're still going to feel like it wasn't you who got the girl, that it wasn't you who deserved the girl. It was these like lines and it was these shticks, these techniques that got you the girl. So it's not really going to reinforce any sort of healthy mindset or self-esteem. On the other hand, if you can just go up to a girl, which is the game that I teach now, and just be normal, just be cool, just be less reactive with her and naturally elicit a lot of investment. And you can actually begin fucking these really attractive girls, these really hot girls, by doing essentially nothing and by just being cool, by just being yourself. What do you think is going to happen to your self-esteem? It's going to shoot through the fucking roof, right? So solidify the self-esteem by getting the girls that you want through essentially being yourself and not putting on a persona, not trying to get every girl, not trying to manipulate girls and things like that. All right. I actually have to go now. This is getting late. We've been way over time. It's been 2 hours now. I have to go. So webinar is over. Thank you so much, guys, for hopping along. It's been an amazing ride. I fucking love doing this with you. And, stay tuned. I'm going to release a bunch of more fucking free content for you. As for the bonuses and the syndicate, the online mentorship program that I'm running, the bonuses expire in 1 hour and 45 minutes unless you get in touch with me now. So yeah, that's it for today. My virtual assistant is currently online to handle any questions that you have, but I got to bounce. Thank you so much for doing this with me. It's been a fucking blast, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.